All right, everybody. We've hit that time portal, hit the rewind button, and here we are for another retro rewatch.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, episode three. It's crazy that we're all at the third episode. Hey, little nugget here, and we're going to pass this up. 90% of all podcasts don't make it past episode three. So we're going to be part of the 10%. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast and get some really good feedback. We really appreciate it. Chris, today we're going to jump right in and talk about a classic film, 1994 classic with Brandon Lee, The Crow, and also going to talk about the new Crow. Would you say it's a remake, reboot, whatever that is, with Bill Skarsgård? Did I say his name? That's coming out in August here.
I'd call it an abomination.
That there it is. So we're going to talk about that as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I tell you, if you don't mind, let's just go ahead and let's start talking about that. I mean, we're
That's
going to
right.
start talking about the remake because I mean that's kind of what's really bringing this film back to light again.
Mhm.
Um, so you've watched The Crow recently, right?
I actually watched it today from our actually from the Voodoo account from our late friend Ryan Brewer. Shout out up there to the big man upstairs again. Hope he's doing good overseeing this. But yeah,
Yeah.
watched it on his account. So I thought about him. But yeah, I actually watched it on my big 65-inch 4K. Looked a whole lot better than some of that VHS DVD crap from the day. So I saw some pores and maybe saw some less quality, but it did age well and still a great film.
Yep. So this new one looks like it's going to be none of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is, the new film has got Bill Skarsgård in it, who has been in a bunch of films recently. Actually, he was in the It remakes, part 1 and 2. He was in that new one that just came out, like Boy Kills World, I think it is, which actually does look kind of funny. It's got the guy from Bob's Burgers, and Archer is like his internal voice. Anyway, that movie actually looks pretty cool, but this movie looks awful.
It
I mean,
does.
especially for anybody who is a fan of the old Crow. This one is going to be directed by Rupert Saunders, who directed Ghost in the Shell, and I think he directed one of those Huntsman movies also that had Stewart in it. Did you see any of those?
I think I saw the Ghost Ship or yeah, that one, I believe.
Well,
Um,
I hadn't seen
yeah,
any of the Snow White movies, but I saw.
yeah, I
I mean, I
mean,
did see the Ghost in the Shell, and I mean the thing that worries me, and the reason I bring it up is because it essentially the Crow is going to be an adaptation, whether it be from the graphic novel or whether it be from the 1994 movie. And the Ghost in the Shell was as well. There was a graphic novel of it. There's been a ton of movies. There's been a ton of shows, and that movie was not good at all. They completely ruined Motoko Kusanagi's character. They were accused of doing some whitewashing by having Scarlett Johansson in it instead of a Japanese actress,
mhm.
that kind of stuff. So, I mean, the guy's not really got a great track record coming into this in the first place, especially not something as beloved as The Crow is. I mean, when you go back and watch that film that you watched today, apparently, that thing is just oozing just style. It's oozing
Yes.
just a piece of the time. I mean, everything from the music to the look
Yep.
to, I mean, the action that it had in it, the characters that were just very, very memorable. This new one doesn't look like it's going to have any of that. If we were to try and draw some comparisons, like the old one is very, 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 very dark.
Mhm.
It's almost black and white. It's like a neo noir. Okay,
It
this
was.
new one, it's very drab, but it's a very bright drab. It looks like it's very, very metallic. It looks like it's going to be very, very hollow.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's going to have any of that soul that the old one have. I'm actually going to share my screen real quick, or at
Yep.
least I'm going to try to. This is the first time I've done it, and let's look at a couple of these pictures real quick.
Yeah.
Can you see this?
I can.
Okay, so like this first image, I mean, we've got what I think is supposed to be our BA pose of
Mhm.
the Crow walking down the street, but like if you look here, like first off, it's very clear. It's not very clear in this picture because I don't really know how it works with copyright stuff, so I didn't go get the sharpest, cleanest images you could.
Right.
But if you look at it, you can see like reflections in the cars real clear. You can see like the brick behind him real clear. Nothing's like black or dark. I mean, in some ways, it almost looks like it could have been a daytime shot that they have like modified to look like nighttime. But that's kind of one of the things I'm talking about. If so, this trying to, there we go.
Yeah.
This is going to be the happy couple, which leads me to my first real problem why I call it an abomination. All right. So in the old one, we had Eric Draven and Shelley Webster, who are
Mhm.
our protagonists, right?
That's
And
right.
Brandon Lee was playing Eric. So number one, with the remake, I don't know why we're remaking it.
Yeah.
Okay. Like if they've already had three sequels of The Crow. So if we wanted to do a fourth sequel and just have it be another couple, that would be perfectly fine. But I don't know why we had to make it Eric and Shelley, because there's automatically going to be so many comparisons between the old one and the new one. Again, look at this frame. Like there's nothing, it doesn't have that same look or feel. And I understand it doesn't have to be exactly the same. It is a remake,
Yeah.
but the issue is it looks generic. It looks like a producer's checking the boxes.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a comment about Bill Skarsgård's character here in a minute that I'm sure you're probably going to love, but I don't right off the top of my head. I've never really seen her in anything, but I think this is kind of a funny look. Bill Skarsgård, he almost looks kind of like he's surprised or unsure. And then you've got who's going to be Shelley with whatever kind of nose jewelry that is. That I don't know. I don't really get that. So here we got Bill Skarsgård in the Crow makeup, and I mean, I don't know about you, but again, this doesn't scream the Crow to me. Now I
Yeah.
know in every movie they make it a little different, but the first thing I thought of when I saw this was actually Jared Leto's Joker from Suicide Squad.
I've heard
I
that. Yeah.
mean,
He does.
whoop, there we go.
Yep. Good comparison. That's great.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, like, I don't know about you, but I mean, I remember back when that came out, that was not very well received, even as the Joker. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like he was
Yeah.
the worst Joker of all the Jokers that had ever been. So we decided, hey, we're going to have this beloved movie, that had Brandon Lee in it, who unfortunately was killed during the making of it. And we're going to do a memorial to him as Crow Joker.
Mhm. Tattoos look bad, by the way. Like, I don't know what's up with tats. He almost looks like
Yeah.
he'd be a druggie.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Like, so in the original graphic novel, he's not, it's never defined what he does as like a job or profession or who he is or where he came from. But James O'Barr has said repeatedly that he kind of imagined him more as like a construction worker
Hmm.
or a blue collar, like layman type guy. Um, in the graphic novel, like in the movie, you've got the loft that they're living in, right?
Yeah.
In the graphic novel, they have just bought their first home and they've moved out of Detroit, specifically Detroit, and moved out to the country to start this idyllic life, which clearly goes south, right?
I figured he might have been like I just watched a struggling musician, maybe just making ends meet. They're just kind of in love together, Shelley and Eric Draven. But that's what I was saying.
Right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to share my screen again, and this time we're going to try and look at there we go. So now we've got the man,
Yep.
and I accidentally skipped it. But what's really actually interesting about this particular shot is that is actually the director of John Wick, Chad Stahelski, I think is how you say his name. I may have messed that up. And
Hmm.
they've actually superimposed Brandon's face on that particular shot.
Hmm.
But look at how dark this is. Look at how little of the background surrounding you can see. It's so stark that his white stands out so much.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then you have iconic shots like this, where I mean, he lights the crow up, and I mean, this has been copied in several other shows and movies as if it was something they did for the first time. Daredevil with Ben Affleck being one of them that comes immediately to mind.
Yeah.
You've got a 1010 who had a pretty good fight with Brandon. It wasn't like a super choreographed fight. It's not like a Van Damme movie or something, but he catches a knife that 1010 throws at him. They go through several like layers. They punch each other into a mud puddle. He has a bunch of quotables here, like victims, aren't we
Aren't we
all?
all? Yep. Hey, Halloween ain't till mañana.
Manana. So
Yep.
that's kind of it. Like this movie just had so many quotable things, so many memorable villains. Like,
Yep.
here we've got Fun Boy, who in the graphic novel is beyond twisted. I mean, in the graphic novel, there's stuff including like necrophilia and stuff like that involves his character. This is
So,
actually go
so
ahead.
back to him real quick. So Michael Massey, it wasn't his fault, even though supposedly he was in the scene that might have shot the gun. He wasn't at fault or anything, but he actually stopped. This is according to IMDb trivia. Stopped acting for around a year. He was so traumatized, and he never actually talked about it till think he passed in like 2017, but real late in his career, he didn't actually talk about it till like 2015, 2016, one of his last interviews. He said he was really traumatized. I don't think he's ever really watched it. It just really messed him up, the whole death of Brandon Lee. But anyway,
Yeah, a lot of people. Well, it's funny because I mean, depending on who you listen to, there are different stories. Unsolved Mysteries had one story. Steven
yeah,
Seagal. I know he's come up now on all three podcasts, but he's got his own story. I'm not joking. Like he claims that that Eliza called him after Brandon was shot, and he had this like great like, hey, I believe that you will find a bullet. No, are you kidding me? He was shot. Yeah, you're gonna find a bullet. Are you kidding me?
yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So I mean, there's all the. I don't think James O'Barr or Chad themselves. I don't. Well, Chad's talked about it, and he's got a story which his story does involve Fun Boy, so that probably is the one, but that's real. But James O'Barr has never talked about. Or not James O'Barr, excuse me. Alex Proyas, the director, he's never talked about it. Great special effects, man. You had a lot of practical effects, and then I mean that was right around when computer animation was starting to like kind of find its footing too. T-Bird in the comics is actually the main big bad guy, and they kind of changed that to Top Dollar, which I'm glad they did. That kind of made sense. Top Dollar sounds like the big guy, right? The one that you're like working your way to the top. But T-Bird was really cool. And like I said, in the comic, he was actually the big bad. And beyond that, he actually looked more like Tintin than the T-Bird that they actually have. And here's the man himself, Michael Wincott. You talk about quotables, like, oh my goodness. I mean, he's like, well, I think we need to have a round for our good old friend Tintin. And man, I think we need to record this and play it back in slow-mo. Oh my God, I think we broke her.
Yep.
It just, I mean, quote after quote after quote. And
great villain.
Houston is going to be the guy that's the villain in the new one. And I mean, all respect to him, but I just don't think he's going to be anywhere near the level. I mean, the thing that I can think of most recently that Houston has been in was Yellowstone, and he just was not. I mean, I don't know. I guess you shouldn't typecast people or assume like, okay, well, he was in that role, so he's going to be in this role. But sometimes it's kind of hard to get by. I mean, he just was not a strong villain. He was not. He was very inept. You know what I'm saying? Cocky in all the wrong ways, and just so I mean, going into this movie, it's kind of hard not to see the potential for some of those things. But I mean, you can see through these pictures. I mean, there's so much in this that they got right too. Like for instance, in this particular picture, it's not why I found the picture, but I'm just looking at it. He's got all this electrical tape all over, and that was in the comic books too. He had this razor blade that he was cutting himself with over and over again, almost kind of like as a penance that he was, filleting himself. And he was covered in all this electrical tape to hold himself together. You know what I'm saying?
I also want to mention this is according to IMDb, just interesting. So prior to filming, Brandon Lee somewhat had somewhat of a morbid fascination with death. He often drove around in a hearse he owned, visited famous graves, and would listen to the Doors. Also, he was a lean guy, and I've read in a couple of different websites he even lost up to 20 to 30 pounds to lean out for the role, I guess, to be this ghost type character. Um,
Right.
Also, another one is guess who two actors that turned down the role of Eric Draven. I guess they were offered it and turned it down.
I actually don't know this.
This is River Phoenix and Christian Slater at the time, so that was interesting. This is filmed in
Well,
Wilmington, North Carolina, which is about 4 hours, 3 4 hours from where I live here in Charlotte. So I always thought that was kind of interesting.
so did River actually turn it down, or did he die? Because he died tragically, unexpectedly as well.
Yeah, it just had River Phoenix and Christian Slater turned down the role of Eric Draven. Also, another interesting, James O'Barr wanted Johnny Depp to star as Eric Draven.
Johnny Depp would have been good. Johnny Depp would have been good, I think. But I mean, I'm kind of curious to look at with the new movie, talking about the look. I mean, there's we're judging it based on a trailer, which might not be fair, but by the same token, I think if they had just named them anything other than Eric and Shelley, I don't think anybody would have given them as much of a hard time as they are getting and or going to get because of how it's going to be judged, because it has to be Eric and Shelley, right? But the thing about it, like in the trailer, I'm not even sure, like based on what you get to see, how much he even wears the makeup. Like if you really go back and look at it, it might only be 2 scenes. Like, because there's a lot of it that shows like he gets shot with a shotgun and falls into a bathtub, and this happens and that happens. And, there's flashbacks and there's like stuff on the other side. And I mean, you only see you see a scene where he's in like a club or walking down the street. And when he's walking down the street, he's walking into like what looks like the big bad guy's place of business. And he gets shot up 100,000 times, I guess, kind of like he does in the old one in The Office. But like, it's all CGI guns, CGI bullet hits. And it's just like, oh my God, I hope it doesn't look this bad in the actual finished movie, because it looks awful in the trailer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But, if they were going to remake it, what they should have done is gone back to the original source, instead of making this thing that like looks, I guess, however Rupert wanted it to look or whatever. You know how Robert Rodriguez, like we talked about last week, we talked about Machete, and I kind of made a teaser of like, we're going to kind of talk about something similar. Well, he made Sin City, right? There were the 2 Sin City movies. And I mean, he basically shot it in front of a green screen, and they had like, artists or whatever do the background. And it was amazing. It was really good. Or at least I really enjoyed it, especially from a filmmaking standpoint. It was really good. Now, it was pretty extreme. It had a lot of really extreme violence and stuff like that in it. And matter of fact, I think you and I might have actually seen it on a double date, and I had actually seen it before, and you were like, how did you let me go watch this tonight on a double date? Like, that was kind of like traumatizing. There was a scene where like, what's his name from The Lord of the Rings, the little guy?
Oh, Sean Austin or Elijah Wood?
No,
Elijah Wood?
Elijah Wood,
Oh, yeah.
where he's like getting his legs eaten by like dogs. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, whoo, man, this is getting, he's alive and got his eyes open. He's smiling all creepy like, but back to the point, why couldn't we go back to the original like graphic novel and do that? Like, I'm going to pull up some pictures here and we're going to share again.
Actually, interesting. Just looking at it here, it's $50 million budget for this new one. So I think they're in danger right there, because I'm sure this will get like a short box office run the way everything is.
Yep. So, all right, can you see this?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, this is a scene that's similar to the office room, although it's something actually different. It's in a bar in the graphic novel. And he's going after Funboy at this point to kind of prove that he's an immortal ghost. But let's see here. Just kind of, I'm not really wanting to call out any one thing in particular here, but just kind of look at the style. I mean, how neat would it have been if they had gone back and made a movie? It doesn't have to be animated, but if they had done it in that same style, like Sin City, but with the Crow. Because the thing is, there's a lot of different movies that are like vigilante-ish movies. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's plenty of those. And that's what this looks like it's going to be, is some generic like revenge flick.
Yeah.
And at its most basic core, The Crow was a pretty simple revenge flick kind of, but it had so much style and so much music and so much of all this other stuff that was so engaging.
Love some Stone Temple Pilots, man, and it fit it for that time. Like, when you thought about the 90s, mid 90s, it was like The Crow, Stone Temple Pilots, and all the other artists.
Just the reality, it made it more than it kind of is. You know what I'm saying? Like, the movie is not a perfect movie, but it is perfect for what it is. You know what I'm saying? So I stopped on this picture because I wanted to say something real quick. You remember a minute ago how I said that T-Bird looked more like Tintin? This is actually T-Bird in the graphic novel. This is T-Bird in the graphic novel. Like, whenever the Crow is behind him, like he is in the movie, and like actually shoots a passenger in the car and is just terrorizing him.
Right.
And there's Gabriel, like was in the original movie as well. So, I mean, if we went back to the original, like, just like a word for word, I don't think that would work, because the way the graphic novel's written is it's really choppy. Like, it kind of jumps back and forth between the Crow, like at his old house, like having memories of what Shelley was like and he was like, from the time they moved from Detroit out to the farmhouse. Then there's like poetry that's written by other, I guess, writers that James O'Barr loved. That's just kind of randomly in there that I guess helps emote a feeling of what you're looking at by what he drew. Then you've got the stuff that's going on with the criminals. Then you've got this, where the actual incident happens. You've got these things, but it's all a mishmash. It's really, really, really out of order. It's almost a stream of conscience telling of the story. I mean, it does have a beginning, it does have an end, and it does sort of have a linear flow, but it's really not. And really, if I'm being 100% honest, the 1994 movie is superior, in my opinion. There's a lot of like pacing and speech and stuff like that they really kind of evened out, and they made it I'm going to say more colloquial, because especially the criminals in the Crow graphic novel, it's very, very rigid. It's very stock. It's not very in depth or engaging. They're just very atypical, all of them. Like none of them really feel like any kind of different character than the other than a few of the actions they take. For instance, like Fun Boy being a necrophiliac, you know what I'm saying? That makes him different than Tintin or anybody else.
Yeah.
But it's not that he comes across as any different. And they did a much better job in the movie of giving each of them a personality. You understand what I'm saying? Giving them something unique that whenever, like the Fun Boy dying the way he did in the movie is pretty much verbatim the way he dies in the book. And it's also like, for instance, with his girlfriend, that Sarah's mom, you know what I'm saying, that all that scene in the bathroom, all that's exactly the same. So the stuff that was really good, they did keep, but the stuff that really could have used a little editorial help, they fixed it, if you want to call it that. But the overall mood, the feel is very in tone. It's very right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, another thing I noticed that I actually way back, so I think I did two movie art of movie and history of film easy classes at Georgia Southern. Chris and I went to. Anyway, I remember a long time ago I wrote a movie. I mean, a review or a paper on this, but just touching and since I did rewatch it, a lot of religious tones too. Gabriel, Archangel being pure as white, he had it up like this, could have been like the resurrection, him coming from death, coming from the grave, him coming back for, you could even do like Michael Wincott, a devil type character.
Oh,
He had,
he's very vampiric, very demonic. I mean,
he,
like the way his hair is, the
yeah,
way
he
his
is.
suit is. I mean, he varies like a Mephisto, Mephistopheles, you know, type kind of character. Absolutely.
Also, him making little jokes about, did you hear this one? Can you put me up for the night? I
Yeah,
mean,
you
there's
know.
like other little jokes like that. So I think it had some religious in its own way, some religious themes.
Oh, it absolutely did. Which, I mean, going back to the James Abar like writing stuff, it had a lot of that imagery and symbolism as well.
Yeah. I think can't rain all the time. You said a lot of quotes. Victims, aren't we all? Also, it's not a good day to be a bad guy. And then
Skank.
one of the crazier ones was in one of the bars. Man, they were like taking shots and swallowing bullets. I like what?
Bullets.
Oh, I was like, oh, it can't be good for the digestion there. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude was shot and like, you're crazy, man. And one guy was like digging in his with like cigars.
Cigar.
They were just
Yeah,
crazy.
that
So
was T Bird.
ruthless henchmen and ruthless characters. I did want to ask this, Chris, because it's been wondering, it's on my head. So I know you're not a fan of Bill Scar. Is it Skarsgård?
Yeah, I got to be honest. I think his brother Alex would have been a better Crow than him.
Okay. Speaking of that, so if you had the pen, as they say, you're the director, the casting agent, who would you put as the Crow currently in 2024 if you had to pick anybody?
Okay, so you asked me this like I don't know, like a month or two ago, before we
Yeah.
even started thinking about doing this
Right.
real seriously, right?
Right.
And so like, and I didn't really have an answer for you then, because
Yeah.
it was kind of one of those things like Brandon is the Crow, you know. I mean,
That's
it's
right.
Brandon. Like
It
it's
is.
so hard to think of, but with a month or whatever time it's been since you asked me that, I
Mm.
really took that as a challenge. And we have not talked about it. And I've done that on purpose so
Right.
that as I talk about these actors that I picked, I could
Yeah.
get real reactions from you.
Right.
So I'm going to try and see if I share my screen again. And we're going to talk. I've got 7 people here. Okay.
Yeah.
6 of them are real actors, and one of them is somebody else. Okay.
Okay. All
And
right.
what I've done, they're hot takes. Some of them you're going to be like, you have got to be kidding me. But let's remember, we have had really good actors do stuff like, I actually like Robert Pattinson as Batman. I liked
Yeah.
Heath Ledger as the Joker. And both of those people, I actually like Ben Affleck as Batman. And all 3 of those people, whenever they were announced as their characters, they were just like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, how can they do this?
Yeah.
Some of these picks, I think, are going to be that way,
Right.
but I will stand by it. Okay. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share.
I like Robert Patterson better than Ben Affleck, by the way. So anyway, that's my opinion.
All right. So can you see this?
All right, I know who that. All right,
Who's this?
that is. Oh, that's I just saw it. Hold on. I should know him. The audience is like, "Come on, dude!" And he's Jack too. It's he was just in Iron Claw. Why can I not
Yep.
say his name?
You're
It,
right.
it,
You want me to
yes,
help
his
you?
name. I feel terrible. I just watched this movie. I should know this. You're taking my
It's
movie,
Zach Efron.
Zac Efron. That's actually good. But the only thing
So
with him
like,
recently, he's got this like he had that chin surgery, and he looks totally different now. But that's actually great. He's jacked right there. I think that's Baywatch.
so
Zac
it is.
Efron. I
This
can't
this
believe I
is all
can't
from
remember.
Baywatch.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Anyway,
I don't know. I haven't seen a whole lot of movies with him. I know he started out as like High School Musical.
yeah.
You know
He
what I'm
actually was
saying?
really good in
So
that wrestling movie Iron Claw. Must watch.
that's
Really
what I was gonna
good.
say. I don't know
Yeah.
that he's been in a lot of action movies, so I think that'd be one of the things that would hurt him kind of out the gate. You know, he's done
Yeah.
stuff like The Greatest Showman and things like that. But here's the reason I would stand by it. First off, the stuff that I have seen him in, I think he's a legitimately good actor.
Yeah. He is.
That is number one. Okay, number two, I think he's got the body for it, and then number
Mhm.
three, I think that he's got the acting, he's got the right chiseled face, he's got the right voice. I
Yeah.
think he could pull it off. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
It's actually good. That's a good pick.
So that's why I stand behind that one. Okay. Now I think maybe it was before we started talking tonight. We started touching on a few things. I was like, hey, we need to talk about this in the actual video. One
Right.
of them we discussed was okay, Brandon Lee could do action. He did Rapid Fire, he did Showdown in Little Tokyo, things like that, where he was kicking people and he was doing all this stuff, right? Like he was, wielding all these guns. I mean, like Rapid Fire in particular is literally a nonstop music video of action, right?
Yeah.
In The Crow, he doesn't do a lot of action. He does some,
Yep.
but in the action he does is really down to earth. I mean, it feels like any guy could go and do that action. I mean, some guy could get into that fight. It goes to the ground, they roll around in the mud puddle, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's like two scenes, one where he does a kep up and one where he does like a flip over a table. Like those are like the only two instances that I can remember that are kind of over the top. Like your average guy's not going to do that. But I mean, a dead spirit ghost man should have no issue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, if we were to go a little bit more the action route, and I don't really want to talk about whitewashing per se, but Brandon was an Asian guy.
Mhm.
In the graphic novel, they don't really give an ethnicity to him. However, sticking with an Asian theme, if we were to do an Asian guy to kind of fill the same role, how about this guy? See if you can tell me who this is. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's the guy from the Raid, right?
Yep, that's him. That's Iko Uwais.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know exactly how to say his name.
Yeah.
He was in Expendables 4. He was like
Okay.
one of the main villains in that. The Raid has some of the like most brutal fight scenes ever.
Raid's
I mean,
great.
all we talked last week about Steven Seagal walking through people. Got to be honest, there's parts of this movie where he's kind of doing the same thing, but I mean, it is so unbelievably brutal when he is doing that.
Yeah.
They're not getting up. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a scene where he like stabs a knife through a guy's quad and cuts him all the way down to the kneecap, stuff like that. Those guys aren't coming back. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They're going to bleed to death on the floor.
That's an interesting pick. That's good.
This guy's legit. I mean, he can do all kinds of action moves, use all kinds of weapons. Like, I mean, I couldn't find any pictures of him with long hair. There's a lot of guys I couldn't find pictures of long hair. And I would say that that's important, especially if we're going to argue that going back to the original source is the way to do it. But so, I mean, you're going to have to like forgive me on some of these guys not having the long hair. And I mean, so it was a TikTok filter that I used to do kind of like the eyes, and I went back and did the mouths and stuff. So it's not exactly going to be like the cleanest job here, but hopefully it gives you enough of an idea of what I'm looking for. Now, this one I think is going to be a hot take. One of them being his age, but let's see. And how about that one? You know who that is?
Guy from Walking Dead.
Yep, it's Norman Reedus.
Okay.
So admittedly, I don't know. I can't tell you how he looks like today. I mean, for all I know, he may be overweight like Seagal. But I think if you were to look at when he was Daryl, which I know he just did Daryl Dixon, which was like a spinoff show of The Walking Dead, which I genuinely think this picture here is from. The other one may be too. I'm not sure. But if we go back to what I said a minute ago, how James Abar originally saw him as a blue collar everyman, a construction worker, Norman Reedus has got that in spades. As Daryl Dixon, he was just a Southern guy. I mean, he was just a BA that knew how to survive. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he wasn't a clean fighter. He wasn't like I'm going to do these pretty spin kicks, but he was always effective, and he always made you believe that he was a real tough guy that would get out of whatever situation he needed to, right?
Yeah.
And I genuinely think here's the long hair. The long hair like is not clean and tidy. I mean, it's greasy and wet. And I mean, again, look at this picture here. I honestly think he would be really good in the role. He's got acting chops, he's got experience. Now the question is, would he be able to get out from under Daryl Dixon? I mean, I talked about Houston a minute ago being typecast. Would you be able to see him as Eric Draven, or would you see him as Daryl Dixon? That's a valid question.
Yeah, that is good. Good, kind of out of the box pick there.
All right, so I know you're going to love this one. I kind of wonder if this is going to be the first one that you're going to be like, "Yep, you lost me." Who's that?
Let's see. Ooh, looks like something with the Punisher.
So, all right. So this guy is actually, he would be my first cast as the Punisher instead of Bernthal. This is the guy that for like over a decade, I've been saying this guy needs to be the Punisher. This is Frank Grillo. And these pictures are from The Purge. Wow.
He is Jack now.
Yeah, The Purge Anarchy. So there again, this guy's like 60 years old, 55, somewhere in that age range. And like you just said, he is beyond jacked.
He is.
But again, like I really feel like this guy, which here's another thing, every one of these pictures, these guys have got facial hair. They're all scruffy. I don't know how well that would work for the Crow. So you're going to have to like, forgive me for that. But
he's actually 59, by the way.
59. So, but I mean, with him, like, again, you would have no issues. The guy's got the voice. He's got the look. He's been in some absolute trash garbage, but he's also been in some really good movies. Yes. I mean, he was in Captain America. You know what I'm saying? In the Marvel franchise, he was Crossbones. So, I mean, he's played villainous people. He's played heroes. Right. I mean, I don't know if you've seen The Purge, Anarchy, and Election Year, but those two are definitely my favorite. They're not even really horror movies. They're action movies.
Yeah, those are good.
All right. So this one, I do not expect you to know who this is. This is definitely going to be a hot take one.
This is number 5, by the way. I like it.
All right. You got it?
Let's see. Ooh, is that the guy from The Guest?
It is the guy from The Guest. You just blew my mind. It's it's
I got.
It is absolutely. It's Dan Stevens.
Okay, it's a good pick, man. I kind of like that actually.
Yeah, so that's kind of it. So this guy's claim to fame is Downton Abbey. That's where he started at, and he was a little overweight and chubby kind of, but he's also done The Apostle, which was a phenomenal like horror movie that was on Netflix. It was kind of like Midsummer or something kind of along those lines. Very gory. And then of course you've got The Guest, like you mentioned, and in that one he plays a complete psychopath. He was jacked. He's got the body for it. He's lean. And then I mean he's also been in I think it's an FX show called Legion. Where he's playing an X-Man. So I mean he's got some action movie chops, albeit like he's not going to be like Stallone as Rambo or Schwarzenegger or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? But again, we're looking for guys that are actors, you know what I'm saying, that will be able to play the part and do a good job.
I think a good lean guy would be a good pick. So I like that. Got lean and ripped.
Yep. So let's see. We're going to do this now. There's no way you're going to get this one because this guy's not an actor. This is actually the picture that I did share with you to kind of show you what I had been doing. But this guy,
he looks jacked.
Yeah, we got the body. I mean, he's actually a musician. His name is Johnny Hawkins. He's the lead singer of Nothing More. But like you just said, he's in extremely good shape. He's not like Schwarzenegger jack, but he's in really good shape, very, very toned, no body fat. He's got the look. Now, does he have the acting chops? No idea. But I mean, look at that right there. Again, talking about the wet hair. And I mean, that's like, I didn't do any of that stuff on his chest. That's paint that they like threw on him at a concert kind of thing. Yeah. So, but I think that he would be, for the look, I think he would be really good. I think he could apply to that everyman, like I was talking about before, but have that down to earth, insanely fit body. You know what I'm saying? And then if we got him some acting lessons, maybe he'd be good to go, you know? And then the last one, this is the guy that I think actually probably will be the best, to be honest with you.
Hey, Chris's pick.
So, and who we got there?
Ooh, Looks pretty good. Yeah, don't got me on that one. Got long hair going.
Yep. So this is Sebastian Stan. Most people would know him as the Winter Soldier from Captain America.
Okay.
But I mean, look at that picture right there. I
Yeah.
mean, the bloody and beat. Now he doesn't have. I didn't do the side stuff on his mouth like the Crow, but I saw that picture. I was just like, oh my gosh. I mean, I think this might be as close to Brandon as you can get. You know what I'm saying? If you were going to try and do again, you go back to some of those pictures I showed earlier, like with the kind of messy hair, the long hair. You know, the guy's got it. I mean, he's got I don't know how many abs he's got there. It looks like one of them's like splitting into two,
Yeah.
but I think he would be really good. Again, he's got the acting chops. He's got the body and he's got the look. So there's 7 guys right there. And I'm going to give 2 honorable mentions, no pictures, but going back to the Walking Dead and, with the Asian potential, like Steven Yeun, Yon, I don't know how you say his name, but I mean, he might be a potential. And then if in the graphic novel, he's supposed to be 7 feet tall. Joe Manganiello, from True Blood, the guy that played the werewolf, 6'6" wide as a door.
That's a good
I
one
think
too.
he'd be a good one too. And I mean, he's like super huge. So I mean, those would be honorable mentions.
I like those. If I had to pick any of those, I like the Efron pick and I like the dude from The Guest. If I had to just off
Dan
top of my head.
Stevens, I got to be honest, Dan Stevens and Sebastian Stan, those are my 2 favorites. And I really went back and forth. The only reason I edged Sebastian Stan a little more was just the look, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Like the hair and all that. I haven't seen Dan Stevens with long hair, but The Guest was excellent. I think that kind of character that he wasn't the real quiet, stoic, all that stuff, leading into the psychotic, even, the crazy part of him being dead and vengeful would really work for the Crow, especially if we were to go back to the source material.
I guess the one thinking back on it, if they could lean him up a little bit, he does have the good voice, raspy, maybe kind of outside the box. He's got the look. I feel like the Jason Momoa who was flirting with playing 2018 and everything that happened might not be a bad pick. Just his look, and if they did the hair and they could do the paint right, and I think he could say the dialogue right. Maybe he's a big dude, but maybe
I think the other guys I mentioned for the most part are better actors. I love Jason Momoa. He's funny. He makes great Super Bowl commercials. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But well, we ready to hit the rewind button and head to the video store?
That's right. Really appreciate you guys coming on again.
Looks like we've hit the end of the tape.
That's it. If you're still around, make sure to like, subscribe, share the podcast. And as always, be kind, rewind.
Eric Draven sends his regards.
Victims, aren't they all? Aren't we all?